Unions were not professional. That was the word we heard over and over again, unprofessional.
And I come out of the classroom drained. You know, I'm addicted to coffee.
The morale really was boosted by the AFT because this union is our union.
Psychiatrists will tell you that there's something very special in the act of calling for help. And I think that's true too with people who call for help from the union. That's a very important act. There's things that have built up to that, and by deciding to do it, they've taken a very big step.
The district knows now that when they take steps that affect teachers' lives, that there will be a reckoning.
Of course, when I came in the 60s, there was lots of experimentation. It was an exciting time to be teaching. It was a good time to learn how to teach. And everybody believed in the possibility of change.
It was very much in tune with the educational notions at community colleges at the time. We were going to take this incredibly diverse group of people and raise their level of expectations, their level of achievement, you know, and so we taught a broad range of courses and had people who were, I mean, they were hanging out and smoking dope a lot, but they were also exploring ideas and with a sort of intensity that just has to do with that time.
In 1960, most New Yorkers scarcely knew that there was an AFL-CIO union for teachers. Less than 10% of the 43,000 classroom teachers in New York City belong to the struggling United Federation of Teachers. 850 separate elementary, junior, and senior high schools presented a tremendous organizing challenge. And the stereotype of a teacher in this city and across the nation was of a long-suffering, docile schoolmarm.
Collective bargaining in New York was in the early 1960s or so, and that certainly helped to make it possible here, because in the middle 60s we had the legislature passed a semi-collective bargaining bill. It was definitely short of collective bargaining, the Winton Act, and it was, but I'm sure that was from pressure from the East Coast, and so that definitely, the struggles there definitely carried over to this coast and helped us get collective bargaining.
I grew up in a home in which my mom was a school teacher in New York, and she lived under great fear of being thrown out of her job at any time. It was, in those days, employment at will. It was only when the AFT came along and organized teachers in New York and created a union in which faculty in the New York City school system could be represented that my mother's fears went away and that she could look forward to a retirement pension that had some money in it and some dignity with it. And in fact, I'm proud to say that I come from that historical place and part of that continuity.
My gosh, who would have suspected that within a few years the other association was embracing so many of the things that we embraced from the beginning, like collective bargaining. That was almost a dirty word, or a dirty term back in the 1960s. Collective bargaining, my God.
The AFT was formed in 1964, I think it's the 63, 64 year, by a group of 10, 12 people who were basically a secret society at the time. You know, they met very cautiously, they were very cautious about letting their names be known.
We really had to scrounge to get the required 10 members. And I remember 2 or 3 of the charter members did not want their names published for fear of being, what's the word, discriminated against by their division chairman or by an administrator or whatever. So there was sort of, well, I think the Pope has some cardinals called in pectorum. That is, he doesn't name them publicly. He has them in his chest or in his heart. And so we had some members in And we sent a letter to the chancellor of the district telling them that we were now ready to go and would be interested in all the problems facing the district, especially in mushrooming enrollment. And the president, dare I mention his name, Giulio Bortolazzo, called me and said, I've dealt with unions before. I have no problem at all dealing with a teachers' union. And I thought, well, who said you should have a problem dealing with a teachers' union?
They were willing to contest the very paternalistic rule of Giulio Bortolazzo, who was the superintendent at that time. He was the guy who would call you in your office at 7 o'clock in the morning, okay?
My office mate at that time was a brand new teacher, and I think he wondered what in the world was going on here. When I'm not sure that I asked him to leave every afternoon, but there was an awful lot of whispering. It was almost like a conspiracy to form the AFT.
The growth in terms of the AFT from a traditional union of the 60s, where it organized and established trade unions and collective bargaining where it never existed before in both the K-12 systems as well as community colleges. As the locals and the national organization, the state organization matured, what was understood at a certain point is that unions were not simply about wages, hours, and working conditions, but wages were also about professional issues and academic issues.
I think that given unlimited funds, our particular administration would love to see us have fewer students, teach fewer classes, require written reports all across the curriculum. I think that quality of education is very important to them. They don't have unlimited funds. And unfortunately, I think they're not willing to make some very hard decisions and cut back where it won't affect quality of education. That they really want to say to the outside world, look, we're still doing it. We've still got all the balls in the air. We only have half the funds that we need. But really, your son and your daughter are getting quality education. And that disturbs me a lot. Because if those students are not able to get classes they need to progress on to a university, because they're not offered anymore, if they're getting part-time teachers who have to commute between 3 different colleges in the Bay Area, and that's common with our part-time teachers, who don't have an office, who are just simply exhausted because that's the only way they can earn even a sub-minimal income to live on. Those students are not getting a quality education. If you take the full-time faculty and load them down with fighting battles to maintain a reasonable number of students in the classes, or you take out your best teachers to do administrative work, so you can still say the salaries are faculty salaries, but really it's administrative work that's happening, you're diluting the quality of the education that the students are getting. If you're offering 1 unit for learning how to do the keyboard on an adding machine, you're making students think they're getting education when they're not getting education. They may end up with an adequate number of units to get our degree, but it won't represent an education.